In this companion marker rendering video, we're going to take a look at how to render out this Tesla Gator infantry fighting vehicle. It's part of a larger series where I'm wire modeling and ultimately going to build a foam core model of this military infantry fighting vehicle. We'll take a look and learn exactly how the marker is laid down, as well as the pen and line work, and we'll take a look at the references and influences for this vehicle.
My name is Eric Strebel. I'm an industrial designer. Welcome to my channel about product design and making. I hope that you like, enjoy, and become a subscriber.
If you're not familiar with the genesis for this project, you can check out the video to the original Tesla tank here above on the right. For this video, I've chosen a completely different view. This is kind of a top-down side view, and this allows me to show the maximum amount of information in the vehicle for our concept rendering like this. The markers that I'm using for this rendering are these super old Tria markers. You can use any kind of markers you want, but I have had these for a long time, maybe 25 years, something like that, and I never use them, so I want to use them up, and this is the perfect opportunity to do so. I'm using this light value, and then I'm going to build up the values with the marker and then add detail as I go. And the thing I like about this system is it allows you to quit at any time and you have something on the paper. Better than nothing. So let's say you know you have 3 or 4 hours, or you think you have 3 or 4 hours to do a rendering, and then your boss comes in and says, meeting got pushed up an hour, and you just got to give me whatever you have on your desk, and I need it right now. And so at least with this marker technique, you have something, and you can continue to push the development of the sketch even beyond what you have, and it allows you some flexibility. So even at the end of this marker sketch, you could easily continue to spend hours to build up the value and add detail, but you always have something. You'll see the American alligator here on the right. It's part of the inspiration for this vehicle as well, at least in the front of the vehicle. The other inspiration for this vehicle are these rock crawlers that are pretty popular here in the United States. And they race them up hills, and they're able to overcome tremendous obstacles and terrains and really traverse ground that you wouldn't think that a regular vehicle is able to traverse. So on this vehicle, I'm basically going through just blocking everything in with lines with this 2% warm gray, putting everything in and building the vehicle in perspective. And the nice thing is you can change stuff as you go along, because this 2% gray is pretty light, and now you'll see I'm coming in with a little bit darker marker and some ellipse templates so we can kind of nail things down and sweeten things up a little bit. When I do a rendering like this, I actually have some reference. I have a side view and a top view line drawing. These are isometric drawings that I've done ahead of time, and I need them to build the wire model with. And you can see more of that in the regular video in this series where I'm building the wire model of this vehicle. It's not uncommon for the car guys to do the renderings at the very end that you see in the magazines and stuff. They're done special just for the magazines and that sort of thing. They've been hoodwinking you all along. So now I'm coming in, I'm changing this side entry here. I'm making it a little bit less coffin-like, and I'm coming in and I'm adding value to all the downward facing surfaces, right? So these surfaces here, they all angle downward in this V-shape configuration to help divert blasts from roadside mines and things like that. So this V-hull has become popular in the last, 20, 30 years for military vehicles to help crew survivability in the battlefield. And so this is no exception. This has this critical element, which is this slanted V-hull to allow the blast to be dissipated. This side entry allows crew to enter and exit the vehicle. Possibly it has a barn door, so half the door could flip down or flip up so the TC or the tank commander could talk to troops alongside and be able to see additional elements on the battlefield at the same time. In terms of what I'm doing now here is I'm coming in probably with a .03 gel pen, right? And I'm using a gel pen so that when I come back with marker later on, this pen doesn't bleed. For a long time, I've used just regular ink pens to do a lot of my line work in my marker renderings, but I've really started to switch to these gel pens for the sole reason that they have they don't bleed when you put markers on top of them. Also, they come in different thicknesses, so it's really nice. I have this line weight that's sort of built in, and I have about 3 different line weights, and this is not the finest one that I have in my arsenal, but allows me to just go in, refine everything in this line weight, make adjustments as I go along, and then come back later on and darken things up as we need to. So with this .03, just laying in all the details of all the flat surfaces on this vehicle, right? So in traditional metal manufacturing of vehicles, they often stamp the panels or the sheets. Now this is armor plated, so this stuff is pretty thick, and you can't bend or roll or form, the sheets in the same way that you would for like a vehicle where the material is very thin compared to this. This may be an inch thick or even more, so it could be 5-6 centimeters thick as well. So the sheets are generally cut as flat sheets, and then it is all welded together, either traditional welding or laser welded, fabricated, that kind of thing. In some cases, the older military vehicles, sometimes they would cast the turrets, but I don't think they do that kind of stuff anymore. It doesn't allow enough flexibility for adjustments or manufacturing in the future. So everything is done as flat plates and then welded together. And you'll see all the seams here, they all have a little soft radius. And I like that kind of feel. I don't want super hard angular sort of look. I want a little softness where all those plates come together. And so that sort of represents the big weld that welds all these plates together. They would grind out and soften the welds afterwards, whether they were concave or convex welds, to give you kind of this softer, flat surface look. All right, I use the circle templates as needed to help sweeten up things that are round. It's much easier. Definitely get yourself a set of templates if you can. They're not cheap, but it's a good investment. And I'm going to continue to flesh out the details that I've kind of put together loosely in marker. And I'll continue to do that using my circle templates, making sure to have stuff go to the correct vanishing point and work out all the little details here. And I'm still using that .03 gel pen. These are High-Tech C pens, and they just work really nice to give me all the detail that I want in the rendering for whatever it is that I'm sketching out. As a side note, in the description just below this video, you'll find links to the materials and supplies that I use in this drawing, or the comparable ones if they're not available anymore, including the gear that I use to shoot the video on, and any other stuff that you may need. Now, if the exact materials aren't available that I'm using, I'll link to some sort of an alternate so that you can get your own gear to do renderings just like this. All right, let's put in some of the details of the side entry door. So this would be a ramp that would fold down to allow the troops access here, and then a barn door at the top that would flip open, so you can have it so half the door is open as additional security or safety. And we'll put in a little window there as well. We'll add in a little bit of little door handle to open this ramp and drop it down. Now we'll work on a little bit of detail around the tires here. So I'm doing this with markers, keeping it kind of loose. And these are, kind of knobby tires that are totally influenced by the American rock crawlers that you see here. The European rock crawlers or hill climb vehicles are a little bit different than the American ones. But I really like the tires that the Americans use on their rock crawlers here. You can see an example of that as well. So this is all done in marker. I do have a kind of a separate light source from the right, angling down, and then that sort of washes out the details on the tops of the tires. And we'll do this in a darker, that's probably like a 5 or a 7% gray marker right here that I'm coming in to outline, in this case, a detail where there is air behind the edge of the object, right? So if there is an air gap or a space in between the object, then it gets outlined in a little bit darker value to help separate it from the object that's behind it. And you'll see me start to do that here when I flesh out the rest of the vehicle. And this creates some distance between the edge of the vehicle, and in this case here I'm going through and outlining the vehicle. If there is an air gap behind this and not connected directly to something, it gets a darker line to separate it and pop it off the page to give it some depth, right? So the turret here is separate from the hull, and that darker line helps separate that and give the object some separation and a sense of depth. It's a classic, industrial design technique of outlining your object to help pop it off the page and then show which elements are separated or stick out from the page and have some depth behind it. And I'll do that here on the wheels as well. So I'll continue to do that. I'm using a Uniball here. These are very cheap gel markers, or gel pens, I should say, that you can buy even in like a grocery store or whatever. And I have 2 different Uniballs here that I use. They are much thicker than the other pen that I was using earlier. And I'll even use like a Sharpie sometimes. So we'll add in now some shadow underneath some of the elements. And so this is the shadow that's being cast by the turret and the barrel of the gun, and here as well. And this again adds another layer of depth to show the 3D of this vehicle. And now surfaces that are facing away from the light source on the right get a little bit of value added to them as well. So remember, surface change equals value change. So when you change the value on something, it indicates that there is a surface change, and this helps your eye understand the orientation of the different surfaces. Pretty straightforward, but it definitely takes some practice and sort of understanding what's going on with the surfaces. You need to know that ahead of time. So as those surfaces tip away from the light source, they typically get a little bit darker, and help your brain understand how they are oriented. So here I'm coming in with a Sharpie, even darker, to outline some of these surfaces that are overlapping over other surfaces to help separate them away. Again, with the tires, I really want to make sure those pop off. And then the outline of the vehicle to really show overlapping surfaces so that you can understand what it is that you're looking at and read the elements of the form correctly. On the bottom, as they touch the ground, they kind of fade out and are not as dark. And again, I'm just always building up the value, adding a little bit more detail. So if I have to stop this sketch at any time, I can go ahead and do that. And Just simple little details here. We add a little more detail into the wheels because I feel like they're maybe just a little too flat. Super light, maybe here again at 20% detail. I don't want it to detract from the overall design of the vehicle, but I want to make sure that there is some thought into the rims and show them as kind of this military sort of style of rims with lots of bolts on it. It's a very subtle little detail, but it's necessary so that the wheels don't look like they have no rims, and it's something that you want to add in. So we'll come back in here, just fill out some of the other little details. I add my signature, I hide that in the wheel like it's the name of the tire. I just feel like it fits the rendering here really well. So the last thing to do is to add some notes. Any good design sketch like this is going to have some notes to really hammer home some of the details that aren't visible on the sketch, and to tell the viewer, you know, maybe some things that aren't so obvious about the design, to really convey that information. A lot of times your sketches are seen by executives or your senior managers when you're not there. You may go home at the end of the day and the meeting may happen at 6 or 7, or the information may get emailed as a PDF or part of your portfolio to somebody else who doesn't really know the context of what it is you're sketching. And these notes are a great way to tell somebody else exactly what it is your drawing is all about. Hope you enjoyed this sketch and you learned a few things. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. Hey, and don't forget to follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook sometimes, Twitter usually, and now Instagram. Rock on. Click here to check out some of the other design and making videos that I have that you might enjoy.